All right, so in this video, I'm going to be going over server-side GTM and client-side GTM. So I'm going to be talking about the differences between both of them, and why server-side is a lot better and its benefits. So for server-side, we have our website, and then we have our client-side container, right? And as you know, a client-side container is just a snippet of code placed on the site. In fact, it's two scripts. So you have a script that goes in the head, you can see here. The script is in the head, and then you have another one down a bit that's in the body. So once you have that set up, that is your client-side container. Now those tags, triggers, and variables all run from that container locally on your site, right? But with server-side, right here, we'll implement server-side GTM. There's a middleman in between your site, which has your client-side container, and your integration, which is your tag, wherever you're sending data to. And what we can do here in the middle is we can run tags that say like you're doing database operations, right? And you're doing a lot of queries, right? You don't want to run that actually on your website because that's gonna, consume resources and slow up your site. So what you can do is you can run that on server-side GTM. So server-side GTM usually runs on Google Cloud Run, and you can send your data from your client-side container to your endpoint, your server-side GTM endpoint on Cloud Run, and you can have a script on there to actually do those data operations. So let me show you just a little test I have here. This is an empty container, but I'm going to use it to show you what server-side GTM is. So here in server-side GTM, as you can see, it's going to look a bit different from your regular GTM. So if we go to just say something like this, go to a normal GTM server. As you can see, it's a different menu. We don't have client. We don't have those other menus on here. So it has a visible difference. So let me go ahead and switch back. Now, when we get to server-side GTM, like I said, we have clients. So what is a client? A client, you could think of it as like a piece of middleware, right? So when you send data to server-side GTM, you don't actually send it right to a tag. It gets sent to a client first. And the client's job is to format that data if you want to. Like for example, let's say you have some transaction data, right? But it needs to be formatted, set up in a certain way for your integration to before it receives it, right? So let's say you want to send transaction data, but the integration doesn't want to receive um, costs, right, or product costs with the currency sign in it. So you could set up a client by just going to templates, clicking new client template, right? And you can set up code here that actually do that. So you could strip that currency sign out of the amount, right? The dollar amount. So take the dollar sign out. If it's another currency, take their currency sign out, and then you can go ahead and then send that on to whatever your integration is. Maybe in here you're gonna strip that out, and then you're gonna make a API call, to your a post call to your integration and send that data on somewhere else. So yeah, that's what you can do in here. Simple setup, name. You can create fields. So you have a lot of options for fields there, and then this is where you actually would do most of the work for your template here. So as you notice, you probably noticed, server-side GTM is more manual, right? So with like client-side, you just set up a tag, a trigger, some variables, and it's just clicks most of the time, unless you're doing custom HTML tags. But with server-side, most of it's code. So that is a big difference. It's definitely more advanced, but it is very powerful, and I'm going to show you why. So besides client templates, you can also create tag templates, right? So the client, like I said, the client would be like your middleware that does the formatting of your data prep, preparing your data to be sent over to your tag. So once we get to our tag, this is where we would actually go ahead and do that API call I mentioned. Send it to your integration, and it does look the same. So it's not going to be much different from the client. It's just they serve two different purposes. So in terms of like setup, it pretty much the same thing. So you can also run tests. It's pretty cool. I won't get too in depth into this section because it's just really technical. But so let me give you a good understanding of why we need server-side GTM. So like I said, with client side, you just have your website with your container, and then that data gets sent right to your integration. So if you want to do some like operations with like Cloud SQL or something, right, which is like a SQL database on Google, you would be doing that in a custom HTML tag. Let me show you. You'd be doing that in a custom HTML tag. Okay, here, right? So you actually be like, creating a script and actually running those database operations from here. That's going to slow your site down, and that's also not a good idea to do database operations on the client, right? So that's a great thing to, that's a great benefit of server-side GTM. You don't have to actually run that intensive code on your site. So I want you to notice again, like I mentioned, server-side GTM, it has the actual, it has the additional step, right? So with client, you're just running your data from your website right to your integration. So integration being GA4, right? You're sending it right to GA4. But with client side, you could send it to the server first, and you can do those database operations, right? And you can do those other operations that you wouldn't want to run on your site because it's not secure, right? You say you don't want to process all that data on your website because somebody could just see that, right? They can open up developer tools and see what you're doing. So it's better to send that to the server, do those operations, and then send it to your integration. So all of that is not run on your website, slowing down your site, and poor security. So it improves your security as well. So yeah, as you can see, server-side GTM, you have that additional step, right? So it's website, then over to server-side, and then over to your integration. The client side is just website integration. So why is this important, right? So like I mentioned, we have faster load times, right? So by taking all those intensive scripts that you're running on your site and custom HTML tags and putting them actually on server side, you're using less resources on your website. So you're going to get faster load times. And what do faster load times mean? So if you're in e-commerce, faster load times equals more money, right? Because if your customer can get on the site, have a smooth experience, order what they want, and not be slowed down, they're not going to be annoyed, and that's not going to hinder your conversions. So that's a huge plus. So client side overhead. So yeah, this is kind of the same thing, but it's also going to improve your performance of not just your site, but also within your GTM, right? So if you have, it's just a client-side container, and you're running all these scripts. You're running, doing data operations. You're running built-in types of tags. It can get to a point where it's just this huge mess, right? You're doing all these different kind of things. Nothing's really organized, and doing server side allows you to take all those advanced and just resource heavy operations and push them over to a different environment that's better suited for them. And you could have your client side, just being the one that collects the data and sends it off. So you're going to not only improve your site speed, so you're also going to improve the back end too. So that's really good. Like I mentioned, data security. So if you're doing database operations on your website, right, people are going to see, you don't want to expose your keys, and you don't necessarily want people to see that data that you're, doing operations on. So it's better to do that on the server side, and have that in a secure environment, separate from your website. So easier integration. This is huge because, let me back out of this, get over to here. Okay, so this is a client side container I'm in right now. This is just a testing website. And what I want to show you is that when you're doing client-side GTM, right? So say you want to integrate something. Okay, how would you do that? You would have to create a new tag and go through the list of, tags they have. Like, yeah, there are community templates, but let's say you want to do something custom, right? That a community template doesn't it doesn't suffice for what you want to do. It doesn't, it doesn't have all of the option that you want to do, or maybe you want to integrate with something that's not even on here. It hasn't even been created. What you would have to do, let me let this load. So you see you have a lot of options or community templates, but it happens a lot that there's something, it's just not on there. What you would have to do is you have to use a custom HTML tag, and you would have to run a script here and integrate your GTM with whatever service you want, like Segment or Upra, which is like kind of like a GA4 but a bit better. And you have to do that here. But that ties back to what I said before. Now we're running custom code on the website, doing an integration. That's going to slow us down. We're running more JavaScript on the site. That's going to slow down the site, right? And that ties back to my first point. You're going to get improved site speed by not running this on the client-side container. It's easier to integrate and run it on server-side. Also with server-side, it's easier to integrate also with other Google products. So since their server-side container usually is run in Cloud Run, it's easier to integrate with things like PubSub or Cloud SQL, right? It's a lot easier to receive and send data with those other services if you're using it. So better vendor management. So let's say you have this third party like affiliate, and they want to run scripts, right? You can give people access, right? And you can better manage their scripts that they're running in this environment. So let me show you how you do that. So server-side GTM allows us to create permissions on what scripts we can run and not run. So say somebody wants to run a script. If their permissions are not accepted in server-side GTM, we can deny that script from actually running. But more importantly, when it comes to control over vendor scripts, yes, there are the same benefits of not running scripts on your website for security reasons and not running them on the site for speed reasons. But more importantly for vendors, you can run it from a central source. So say you have 4 different subdomains and you have a container for each 4, right? You would have to run your vendor scripts on each 4 of those, right? So then what does that mean? That means you have to manage 4 scripts to do the same thing, right? Instead of doing that, you can put it on server side and manage just 1 script from a centralized location. It's kind of like a PIM, like for e-commerce, it manages all your products and your listings from a single source, right? 1 source of truth. That's the same thing for server-side GTM. That allows you to create and to make your job easier, right? To make updates and maintenance on these scripts easier, and avoid errors, avoid issues. If you're having to manage scripts from the same script from 4 different places, mistakes are bound to happen. So creating a centralized location for all of these vendor scripts, these third-party scripts, like affiliates or marketing agencies or whatever, is going to make your life easier and reduce errors and reduce the time it takes to make updates and do maintenance, because you're just updating 1 thing instead of 4. So that's a great thing for server-side GTM, and it's one of the many great things, So I want to touch on server-side GTM, just one last thing. So like I mentioned here, right, server-side GTM, you have a server in the middle that you need to send data from your client, from your website, right, to before it gets sent off to your integration. But what is that set up on? It's set up on Google Cloud Run. So setting that up is you can do it manually or you can do an automatic. So when you do automatic configuration, so here you can hit automatic configuration. It'll take you to GCP. It'll provision a new service and it'll spit it up for you. You can do manual, and you need to go ahead and create a Docker image and run that image on your VM on Cloud Run. So you have 2 options that you can do there. So what does that mean? That means I would say there's 2 services. You have server-side GTM and you have Google Cloud Run. So you have to pay for Google Cloud Run, and then server-side GTM just runs on it. So yeah, that's how it's set up. And I said that really to just give you understanding like where it lives, where it operates from. Right? So yeah, that's the difference between client side and server side, and the benefits between for server side. Other than that, I did want to show you one last thing. So these are called transformations, and you can think of transformations like a filter. So whereas client is more as like a gate, right? You need to go ahead and first get your data past that gate, right? So that receives your requests from your client side container. But transformations are a filter. So you can go ahead and set up things like you can augment. Let me show you. So you can augment an event, right? So you can add modify parameters. So you augment them together, join them to create one. You could, allow certain parameters to come in, or you can exclude certain parameters to come in. So it's a really useful tool. And I think that's, without getting too technical, I think that's pretty much sums up what server-side GTM is and the difference between client-side and, of course, its benefits. Faster site speed, reduced client-side overhead, data security, integrations are much easier, and better vendor management. That one's a big one. Not having to run your scripts in multiple locations, and instead you can just run it in one. So that makes life much easier. So yeah, thanks for watching the video, and I hope it helped.